that's all true, if that's all the case, then look to that one example I gave of me reaching across the divide to Nigel Farage, and thank you, Nigel, for him responding and saying, actually, I am going to help you, and then actually delivering on his promise. That's what a Remainer, a former Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate who campaigned for Remain very publicly on these airwaves, can do when reaching across to somebody they disagree with. Because the human spirit is more important and more binding and more lasting than political dispute. And so he did help me. Now, that's an example of how we can heal divides in this Brexit debate. We've got more in common with each other as British citizens and human beings primarily than we do different. And sometimes it means holding your nose, holding your grudge, putting the past behind you, burying your ego and deciding that what you're working towards is more important than that grudge, which is what clearly Nigel Farage did when he helped me on this campaign to stop Muslims being oppressed. Who would have thought, right? So there's an example for everyone. Now, can we please, all of us on the Brexit debate, start doing that? Because we're all in a bit of a pickle. I don't believe we needed to be in this pickle, but we did it. Our hands delivered us to this position. Our very own hands put us in this position. I'm not going to rehash that debate. I love my fellow Brexiteers in this country, right? I'm not going to turn against them just because they disagreed with me on something. I'm going to say, like the example I just gave of Nigel and me working on that petition together, how can we as a country replicate that effort across the board on all the big issues of our day? Because at the end of the day, Brexit's now happened. The environment is still important. So what we need to start doing is thinking of a post-Brexit green policy and what that looks like. Because, of course, we all know who care for the environment that you need international cooperation on that stuff. Right? We all know. So that's a big topic, environment. As is, for example, getting Brexit done because we lost the debate, right? So how do we do that? Well, do you really think, fellow beloved Remainers, that you're going to get the kind of good Brexit, if, the worst, the least case scenario out of a bad job? Do you really think you're going to do that if you don't work with Brexiters to try and achieve it? If you leave that debate to people that won the debate and you say, I'm throwing my hands up, throwing the towel in, I can't do this anymore because they're all a bunch of, expletives, then they will shape the future of this country without your input. And that is not the kind of country I'd like. I'd like my input to have a say in the future and direction of this country. So I think it's really, really important that we bury the hatchet, bury our egos and start trying to work out which type of Brexiter we can work with to try and forge a vision for this country going forward. And what should that vision be? I mentioned it perhaps the week we lost the referendum and carried on mentioning it for a while until I thought perhaps there was a chance to try and rectify course. And then I stopped mentioning it. And then I started mentioning it again when I realised there was no chance to rectify course. What's the it? We need to develop a post-Brexit liberal vision for Britain. Liberals have been engulfed in the Remain conversation and therefore took their eye off the ball as to what Britain should look like after Brexit. Do not leave that conversation to people that you may not agree with politically. Have your own share in that debate. Have your own stake in it. Be a part of that debate. What should Britain look like after Brexit? The deadline is going to pass now, at the end of this month, in 6 days. We're not going to meet that deadline. It's now December the 31st. But the good news is the following. Angela Merkel and Germany are, until December the 31st, holding the rotating EU presidency. Why is that good news? Well, apart from the fact that they are overly reliant on exporting cars to the PRC, the People's Republic of China, park that for a second. The good news is Angela Merkel is known generally to be quite a reasonable, rational human being that you can talk to and get things done with. She's known as somebody that gets things done. Now, she's there until the 31st of December. Can we get somebody on our side who's also known to be reasonable, rational, and can get things done to head up those negotiations? Probably already are. I mean, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that's the way forward. And if we can develop a post-Brexit liberal vision for Britain, I mean small l liberal here, a vision that respects human rights, human dignity, respects a mixed economy, doesn't go all the way ultra capitalist with inequality rising and tries to turn the United Kingdom into some form of pit stop for global trade while you're going from the United States of America, the People's Republic of China or the EU, and on your way to refuel you stop here and this is the junkyard where you pick up all your bits and pieces and your snacks for the rest of your journey. That's not the vision you want this country to be. So we don't want ultra capitalism. We also don't want ultra command economy. A mixed economy, every serious economist under the planet knows this, is the way forward, right? And so let's develop that vision. Who could our allies be? Well, here's another issue. In the new security-conscious environment, clearly referencing again the People's Republic of China's efforts to undermine our national security. In the new security-conscious environment, one of the things I'd recommend, and they happen to share our liberal, human rights-based, humanitarian, democratic values, is that we need to start forging closer and closer alliances with what are known as the Five Eyes nations: New Zealand, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Those 5 English-speaking nations, there is already, and the reason they're called Five Eyes is there is already a security and intelligence cooperation going on between those 5, but let's make it now political and economic. Let's try and work towards building a new club which can then accept other members beyond the 5, right? But let's start with something. So if you believe, as I do, that in a globalized world as we live in, we cannot survive as a tiny island but need allies, then there is your route. There is your direction. Look to the Five Eyes. They share our values. They share our concerns about the world. They don't like genocide. Right? There's a starter, so we can work with them. So let's start working with those Five Eyes nations, but we need to deepen our political and economic cooperation with them while maintaining our standards. Let's not let America, this doesn't mean let America trample all over us. No, that's where you use the other 3 in the 5 to try and develop a more neutral position in this. But at the same time, let's recognize that for all their faults in the United States of America, they're not genociding Muslims.